Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Vergara together with my groupmates. And right now, we will be going to discuss about the two famous Indonesian literature. Okay, so second on the list is the poem I Am Still Whole and the Words Have Not Yet Been Destroyed, written by Wiji Thukul. So Justin, Cresali, RB, and Mariel, take it away.
Learning objectives. First, present the historical and cultural background of Indonesia. Second, determine the significance of the poem to Indonesia. Third, explain the connection or importance of the poem to world literature.
Before we begin, let us first have a game called Metrimeter. Number 1. It is a type of writing that has meter, rhyme scheme, and figurative language that is often written in lines and stanzas. A. Novel. B. Poetry. C. Letter. Number 2. This is the speaker of a poem. A. Character. B. Protagonist. C. Persona. Number 3. This is a group of lines in poetry. A. Stanza. B. Imagery. C. Meter. Number 4. This is called the pattern of sounds found at the end of lines. A. Iambic. B. Figurative language. C. Rhyme scheme. Number 5. It is a type of poetry that doesn't follow any rule. A. Free verse. B. Sonnet. C. Villanelle.
History or background. The history of Indonesian literature comprises of the following periods. A. The period of Buddha. It began since the discovery of Yupa inscription that written records found in the 4th century. The writing adopted the Sanskrit and Pallava letters from India. In the same periods, the poets began to develop their skills in literature. B. Old Malay poets. Literary works are dominated by Sair, Gurindam, Pantun, and Saga, where stories are all about morals and history. Literature in this period are all written by anonymous poets. C. The poets of Balai Pustaka, from 1920 to 1950, the period when Balai Pustaka publisher intended by the Dutch East Indies colonial government had a right to arrange the literature circulation. The literature are mostly romances and novels. D. Pujangga Baru, from 1930 to 1942. The Pujangga Baru is a form of reaction from Balai Pustaka publishers who are considered too strict in censorship, especially on works that contain elements of nationalism for independence. E. 1945 period. The literature in this period is inspired by the socio-political circumstances of the revolution to maintain independence. The literature produced are poetry spirit of nationalism.
1950s, characterized by publication of literary magazine Acts of Care H.B. Yasin, the literature is dominated by short stories and poems. 1966 to 1970s, this period is marked by the publication Horizon Literary Magazine. Many literature styles were growing like surrealist and absurd. 1980s, the literature revolves around romance and love. Began to appear popular novels with easy-to-understand light stories. 1998, the reform of state structure in political, social, and economic aspect has given a good chance toward the development of Indonesian literature. There are many new writers with novels, short stories, poems, and essays with various themes. Freedom of expression provides creativity in the content of the story. And year 2000, the emergence of this generation is marked by the rise of works of literature, poetry, short stories, and novel, the theme of socio-political, especially around the Reformation.
I Am Still Whole and the Words Have Not Yet Been Destroyed is a poem written by Wiji Thukul, a well-known poet and activist. His poems, including the aforementioned one, mainly talk about his experiences as an activist who aims for a better society. According to Guest Banter Journal, the style of language in Thukul's poetry does not contain the beauty of figurative words and similes as he explores the social reality of the marginalized people. It is impossible to express it with dictions full of romantic figures of speech. It was also stated that, in simple language, Thukul wanted everyone from the intellectual and proletarian circles to be able to understand it clearly. With simple language, his poems are still echoed until now as if they are a kind of curse for the unjust rulers. So let's now delve into the poem and its power.
I am still whole, and the words have not yet been destroyed. I am not an artist that makes news, but for certain I am always bad news for those in power. My poetry is not poetry. but dark, sweaty words crowding each other. Searching for a way out, they refuse to die. Even though my eyeballs are gouged and replaced, they refuse to die. Taken away from my home, repeatedly stabbed alone, I have already paid what they demand from me. Time, strength, wounds. Those words never stop demanding. Always they tell me, you are still alive. Certainly, I am still whole, and the words have not yet been destroyed. Translation of Ako masih utuh dan kata-kata belum binasa.
I am still whole and the words have not yet been destroyed is a poem written by Wiji Thukul, which is actually a part of his 3 poems entitled I Have Bullets. Thukul is a poet and also known as a human rights activist whose ideas and words were powerful enough to rock the hearts of oppressive authorities, causing him to be silenced and lost in the sight. It has been his habit to write with regards to politics because he is one of the marginalized. He wrote his observations through poetry. His poems usually knock on people to voice out their rights, describe their suffering from oppressive authorities, and convince themselves to quench their thirst of democracy.
On the first stanza, it can be clearly constructed that the persona was describing himself as a normal artist who does not incline in politics. However, the persona tries to elucidate his repugnance towards the rulers. If we connect it to the life of Thukul, it can be deduced that the poem is completely related to him. As mentioned, Thukul is an artist and is also an activist. He has been vocal with his stand and opposing views against the rulers.
It is signified in the line, my poetry is not poetry but dark sweaty words crowding each other, searching for a way out, they refuse to die. The time wherein Thukul went from place to place or hideouts in order to escape from authorities who seek to capture him. But even considering his seemingly endless search for hideouts, he still wrote poems that sought for justice, a symbol for his immortal pursuit of a tranquil community. His pursuit of a justified and equality-conforming society was proved in the line, even though my eyeballs got gouged and replaced, they refused to die. It was in 1995 where he was bitten by the authorities, causing for his hearing and sight to malfunction. Also because of this, he was blinded due to car accident.
Taken away from my home represents the repercussion of his brave act or simply the risk of being an activist. He had to estrange himself from his family for his wife and children's welfare. Repeatedly stabbed alone is an imagery that explains all of his hurt. In the lines, I have already paid what they demand from me. Time, strength, wound. Thukul was claiming that as an activist, he poured all of his time, strength, and even got wounded 100 times, which was his payment or punishment. This can also be related to the instances he was in his hideout, spending time to gain some strength and to heal from the wounds he got from the activities, an indication that he was beaten up by the authorities several times.
In the third stanza, which consists of 3 lines, Thukul was talking about the words or the poem he wrote that will always make him alive and will never be lost, though in reality, his body mysteriously disappeared without a legal procedure. He left his works as a part of him that shall never perish. Indeed, his work has never been forgotten since they still appeal to injustices of the government.
It is widely known that Thukul disappeared and never came back. However, there is no confirmation that he died. From the last line, we may say that Thukul is still roaming around, sound and complete as in the line, certainly I am still whole denotes. The last line, which is, and the words have not yet been destroyed, on the other hand, represents the fact that all of his works will remain as a strong sword towards breaking the seemingly indestructible and inhumane standards of the oppressive authorities. He may be nowhere in the scene, but his words will always be immortal, words that will forever amplify freedom and peace.
Post-reading activity.
1. How does the poem serve as the voice of the oppressed? 2. How can you use your voice to make a change in the society?
I am still whole, and the words have not yet been destroyed. The poem I am still whole and the words have not yet been destroyed highlights the power of poetry and literature. the author presented ways on how his piece can frighten the powerful people, making them try to stop him from speaking. The poem focuses on the strength of a literary piece, enduring every circumstances that try to hinder it from revealing the truth. The theme includes bravery, honesty, and self-sacrifice.